All right, well, let's get into it. I'm excited to have my friend and real estate, one of the smartest people in real estate, in my opinion, in real estate investing. We have Andy Kaloji on the call today. Andy, welcome, welcome, welcome. Excited to have you on here. It's going to be a good one.
Thank you, man. That's quite the introduction. I would say, just like full stop from the beginning, this is one of my favorite podcasts that I've listened to. Tim and I were talking about this beforehand, but this is one of the few podcasts in the real estate space where it's super, super open. And usually by the time people leave, at least the interview is on the interviewee side, they're tired because they've been asking many questions, which is a really good sign compared to some podcasts where you get like only 5 or 10 minutes of their actual thoughts. So
Yeah,
I'm excited to get pummeled by Tim today.
let's do it. Okay, well, let's dive in. I do want to get into kind of a little bit of your story, but we're not going to start with that. What I'm most curious about is your business right now. So, can you break down for me how many leads you generated last month and how many you anticipate generating this month?
So July was 1,100 leads, or just it was like a couple leads over 1,100 leads, and then August, we're actually I'm not sure how August is gonna end up because we've seen it's very interesting. Just to go a little bit on a tangent here, but weekends are very low, and then weekdays, especially Mondays and Thursdays, are very high in terms of lead volume. And so we have a really hard time calculating from the beginning of the month how many leads we expect to have by the end of the month because you can catch the month on a very different cycle. So like if you have like 5 Mondays in a month, you're going to get a lot more
Mm,
leads that month than you're going to have if you only have like 4 Mondays. Or in February, you could potentially, I think, have 3 Mondays. I'm not sure if that's possible, but something like that. And so with those swings, it can kind of vary. So I'm not sure where we're going to end up for August. And I don't want to like throw a number out there and be wrong and have egg in my face and stuff. But
right,
yeah,
right. Okay,
yeah,
okay. Fair enough, fair enough. So, okay, last month you generated 1,100 leads, which these aren't okay. So these are not your email list leads. They're not buyer leads. They're not Facebook leads. These are like motivated seller SEO, like closing 1 in 10 type of leads. These are like solid leads. Am I right there?
100%. We don't even run Facebook retargeting right now. We don't do we don't have any ads at all. We really should be soon, but we don't do anything just yet.
So this is SEO. This is all SEO.
Just
Like that's your
SEO.
thing. You're the SEO
Yes.
guy, just in case anyone didn't know that.
Yes.
Um, and you were a Navy engineer. I'm probably gonna put that in my little thumbnail or title because that's like a good like Navy engineer system does really well. So you're a Navy engineer. How did you go? I guess I'm gonna ask you the kind of origin question first. So how did you go from being a Navy engineer into getting into real estate SEO? To me, that seems like a wild jump.
Yeah. So we started. For me, again, a Navy engineer working on littoral combat ships.
Not
So
SEO, not SEO for the
not
military.
SEO, not SEO for the Navy. No, I don't think the Navy focuses too much on SEO. Um, but we kind of ran into the problem where like, so Liz, my significant other, she lived in Vermont at the time, and I lived down in Virginia, and we spent every single weekend traveling to and from each other. And so, a lot for us in our growth has been about pain points. Like, what's the biggest pain point in our life, and how can we solve that problem? And so that time, the pain point was traveling to and from Vermont. And so, like, we figured out the credit card hacking, flight hacking, that kind of stuff, which is like a whole other conversation, whole other podcast, really. And then from there, so we finally got her down here, right? She was living in Virginia. Well, now we're commuting an hour each way, both of us, right? And so then it's like, okay, now how do we quit our jobs, right? And that was like the next big pain point, the next big hurdle. And so the next big focus after that was like, okay, so Andy's going to run around. He's going to try to find the next thing that they can work on, kind of thing, and kind of dialed into real estate for not really any specific reason. But then, like everybody, as you get farther into the niche, you find where your happy spot is and where you're maybe you're most comfortable, or where you have maybe the biggest advantage, because everybody comes in with different advantages and stuff. And for us, it was the technical side, right? And that in this space is mostly SEO, some digital marketing stuff too, but mostly on the SEO side. And so that's where we found ourselves. And I'm not going to say we came out of the door day one, swinging the bat and stuff, but yeah, we definitely spent a lot of time on that for sure. It's been a long ride.
Yeah, now I think it's like exponential growth a little bit. Now you're generating over 1,000 leads a month, which is crazy. Let me ask you this. If I want to dive into next, like exactly how your system works, because I don't even know, and I probably maybe not even understand it. And I consider myself fairly intelligent, but I want to dive into I want to break it down here. Um, so actually, let's excuse me, let's just do that. So can you break down exactly how you generated over 1,000 leads last month? So like let's start like the technical structure of how the operation works. If you feel comfortable, do you feel comfortable going into
Yeah.
the?
Yeah, we're
Okay,
super open. Yeah, I mean,
cool.
so
Let's do it.
on the we'll talk about like once the lead is generated. But right now it's like once the lead is generated on a variety of different websites, again, all SEO based websites, it kind of goes through our internal system. We have to like cleanse the addresses, cleanse all the data, make sure it's all formatted properly, make sure it's actually readable and stuff like that. And then it goes into another system which actually starts handing out the leads to the individual people. So someone might be buying a lead in like Dayton, Ohio for $500, or Hawaii for $500, or middle of nowhere Pennsylvania for only $50 or $75 or something like that. I don't know if that answers that part of the question. Or you're talking more about the SEO side.
I'm talking about the lead generation part of it. There's two components. There's like the how do you monetize the leads, and then there's the lead generation part of it. We'll go over both, of course, but yes, I think a lot of people who'd be listening to this would be interested in like how do they generate 1,000 SEO leads? Because I have my business in Delaware, and I'm generating 8 leads a month, I think, and I'm doing okay. I'm happy with that, and you're generating 1,000, so I think that's like literally insane. So can you break down, this is on a national level, by the way, right? This is a national level. I think it probably has to be a multi-state level to get this amount of volume, but are you like running it to a website? Like what is try to paint a picture of how the system works for us, if you could. I don't know, maybe it's, I don't know if you want to talk about it in terms of like how you built it, step by step, or just what it looks like now, but yeah. What is the system that generates 1,000 leads? How does that work?
Gotcha. So we run our tech stack runs on Carrot. It's like the websites, the development, all those pieces and stuff like that. I'm not sure how deep into the SEO side of that you're trying to go, or if you're trying to stay more on the.
Let's go into it. Let's go into it.
Let's go to it. All right, cool. So
yeah.
So the SEO side of it is there's three real components to SEO. And I should really bring up my Carrot Camp presentation. But
right.
the three core components are really going to be the on-page SEO, which is the content on your site, getting the entities on there, putting the entities in the right places, the headers, pieces like that, keyword density, among other things. And then the off-page SEO, the backlink side of it is also super critical, right? Because that's kind of what drives the authority, the trust, the relevance to your site in the eyes of Google. And so those are like the two pieces. And then the third piece is this kind of this factor that's a little bit hard to kind of grasp like with your hands. But you can call it time under the bar. You could call it the x-axis, but really it's time and age and like user signals that kind of adjust the time of the age and things like that. So the way I can describe that is like, I was talking to a friend this morning about our site in Delaware actually, and there's this really interesting piece that happens as a site evolves in its aging process, where so you could. The most important things to rank for the generic keywords, right? So like the we buy houses, the sell my house fast, the sell my house for cash, things like that, right? Not sell my house for cash, Wilmington, Delaware, not sell my house for, or we buy houses, Wilmington, Delaware, things like that. And so as the site gets older and as the site gets more links and more of like an understanding from Google, the site will start to begin to rank for those more generic keywords at a better level, right? So like you might rank for sell my house for cash, Wilmington, Delaware, great, like month 2, month 3 of your site progress, but on month 9, that's when you start to rank for the generic keyword sell my house for cash from Wilmington, Delaware.
Which is more volume, obviously.
Which is more volume, and what we typically see is about 90% of the volume on the lead side comes from those generic keywords.
90%.
Yeah, about 90%. That's what we see, and of course it's going to vary across the board. It's not a perfect metric, but we can see across the board we see about 10 to 20 leads per million people per month, regardless of the market. I think the two markets that don't follow that rule are New York City and then Puerto Rico, from what we've seen. And then Canada's its own. Canada's very different as well. Okay. So we can go back and forth here a little bit, but like the big problems that we see with people when they're starting their own sites is like not understanding those last two metrics there. So the generic part of it, right? So like the 90% of leads come from the generic keywords. So a lot of people are focused on just like, how do I rank #1 for sell my house fast Charlotte? Right. But what they don't realize is ranking for sell my house fast Charlotte doesn't actually get them any money. And then the second piece of that is like some people come to us and they'll want to get ranked for like one county in Tennessee. And that's amazing that they're like want to crush that one market, that one county in Tennessee. But like if you look at how many leads you can get from SEO in one county in Tennessee, it's probably not that many unless it's a really big county. And so what you should tell people is I was like, you're just wasting your money. I was like, you should run direct mail. You should do you should do anything but SEO, because the money, there's going to be a set cost no matter what you do to doing SEO, regardless of your market. And it's only going to grow from there based on how competitive that market is. And so if you pick a really small market, you're just going to throw money away. Even if it's not competitive, just throwing money away. So
gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So how did you go then to, thanks for breaking down the concept. Like, the concept makes sense, but in terms of practicality, how does someone apply that to like generate 1,000 leads on a national level? Like, do you have one carrot site that that you're getting 1,000 leads from, or do you have 100 sites you're getting 10 leads from? Like, what is the web architecture that you have?
Gotcha. So we have a couple sites that generate probably the majority of the leads, and then we have a couple regional sites that generate a lot of leads in very specific regions. So like we have one in North Carolina, and then another one in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia, that generate like a lot of leads in just those regions, but they don't generate leads across the country. And then we have a couple other sites that generate leads just across the country. It's more like kind of like a flat. So we might generate like 10 in Alabama in 1 month, and 20 in Florida, and 30 in Illinois, things like that.
Okay, so interesting. Let me stop you there. Why is that? I'm just curious on like why things are set up the way they are. Why not just have one site? Like, why do you have a site in the region of DMV? I know that you're in that area. Maybe that's the answer, but like, how do you think about like, oh, I'm going to do a site for this region versus national, or it just kind of ends up working out like that?
So when we first started, we were starting regionally. And if like I was a lot more focused personally on the real estate investor side of this industry rather than the marketing side of this industry when I first started. And so
the closing deals and stuff like that.
The closing deals. And so like, I don't want to go on appointments in North Carolina when I don't live in North Carolina. Right. So like I want to go on appointments with people I can see. And so we started regionally. Right. But then it's kind of difficult to take that regional site, especially when the homepage is Washington, DC, and then take it to a national level. Right. And so it's like, we just kind of started breaking off other sites. We also wanted to test other strategies and stuff, some things that were maybe a little bit sketchier. We didn't want to risk everything at the same time to do that. And then as we started to grow, we needed more scale, right? Because like we can't just have 50 sites, 50 states, do it all at the same time. It'd be a huge headache.
Wasn't that your plan originally, though, to do that, to have 50 sites?
Yes, it was. So going back to so what Tim's talking about is we had this original plan where we were going to partner. So we did a lot of partnerships. That was kind of like the middle ground. So we started just doing the real estate investing side, and then we worked into partnerships. So we were partnering with specific investors. They would pay us like 10 grand up front, and then we would split the deals in the back end 50-50, and they would get their 10 grand back as long as we started like splitting deals and stuff. But the problem with that model is that instead of talking to motivated sellers all day, you're talking to your partners all day. Which, not that that's like better or worse, it just doesn't solve the problem in that you're talking to people all day. And if you want to scale your time, you have to break out of that cycle at some point. And like, I can't hire a salesperson to talk to my partners. Like, that wouldn't make sense at all. So yeah, we had to find a way to scale. And then, so we kind of broke off that model. We still have a few partnerships in specific counties across the US, but it's very limited at this point. And I know something that you and I have talked about a lot is trust in partnerships. And what we found is that the best real estate investors are the hardest to trust, and the worst real estate investors are the easiest to trust, generally across the board. And so we found this like very happy medium where we find like pretty good real estate investors. Like, when I say good real estate investors, that could be, the reason they're not great could be a combination of they don't have the best systems, they don't have the best follow-up practices, they're not the best salesperson. Like it's not like they're just bad. Like they're not just like good. They just might not be the most fine-tuned system, because people with the most fine-tuned system typically are a little bit more cutthroat, which is not necessarily the best thing.
You're talking about me. I'm trustworthy, and my systems are like, okay.
Yeah. Well, no, not you specifically, but just like in general, right? And so like, I and you and I talked about this endlessly, but it's critical to work with people you trust. Critical. Of course. And so, I mean, we made a pretty staunch decision. We only work with people we trust at this point. I just won't do business with people we don't trust. I mean, or if we do, we just do it over email. I don't want to get on the phone with them. I don't want to talk to them online or anything like that. Right. It's just not worth the headache and stuff.
Makes sense. Okay. So just so I understand it, I'll try to break it down in my own head here. Okay. So you had regional sites, right? You started out in the DMV area, Maryland, right? You live in Maryland right now, right?
Virginia.
Okay.
Right next to Maryland. Same
place. It. Okay. Yeah. Same metro.
I can see Maryland from my house. So.
Okay. All right. So you started there, and then you wanted to scale up. Like, you got the system that was generating leads in your region, and you're like, hey, I can get more leads at scale doing this and make more money. And you're like, okay. And then you try the partnership thing, but there's, difficulties in partnership, the model there. So then you said, okay, I'm going to switch my business model to more of a national model where you're going to, generate leads and you're going to sell the leads versus trying to close deals and wait for a wholesale to close or something like that. Right.
Yeah,
And then
and
you
I
just,
should. Oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
you first.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, to be clear, I mean, we still do deals actively. Like we still have a direct line with the acquisition team that we work with daily, where we're doing deals across country. I think last month they did 16 contracts, or we did 16 contracts, but those are only from the leads that we're not selling. So our primary motive and our primary goal is to sell leads at this point. To clarify what you're saying, but like if they don't
Okay.
sell, like we're still a real estate investment company. We're still, I'm like Adam and Lance, like we just bought
Right.
into their Oklahoma City deal that they're doing. So like I'm a general partner. Like we're still actively involved in real estate and stuff, but we're not as my day-to-day role is not, I'm not as actively involved in the acquisition side as I used to be. So
Gotcha.
that's changed quite a bit.
I actually talked to the guy, Adam, yesterday. I had him on
Oh,
the
really?
call with me and my partner Jordan, because we're as you know, doing a national PPC campaign, and it's been a bit of a struggle. And he was giving us tips on how he does the national dispo. So I can attest the guy knows what he's talking about, and this guy is actually closing deals. He's not lying. So not that anyone thought you were, but like I literally talked to that guy yesterday. So thanks for the
That's
connection
funny.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you? Okay, so then you basically decided I'm going to go national, and then what? And then you get a national like domain name, right? Is that the next step? Is that how it works? And you say, okay, I get the national domain name, then I'm going to take my SEO philosophy that you went over about trust and time and all that stuff, and you're going to apply it to that domain. And then that's how you go from whatever you're doing, 100 leads a month to 1,000. Is that right? Is that too simplistic? Break it down for me.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's very. That's just like saying like you just run Facebook ads and you make money. But yeah, I mean, it's
Okay.
yeah. So the domain, I wouldn't be too worried about the domain, right? Like if we're talking about like the general SEO strategy, we talk about a lot in the SEO Meets Aria Facebook group, which Tim is also in. It's you're don't worry about the domain name too much. Dial in your on page. We typically like to see the keyword density get up to a certain percentage, about 2%, for the primary entities based on the primary keywords and stuff. So like if an entity is just like a word, so like buy, sell, house, things like that, and you're trying to increase those entities on the page to get them more in line with what Google's looking for. And then the next factor to that is going to be the off-page stuff, right? So it's like getting the backlinks, and that's kind of like the more messy side that people tend to either mess up. So they'll like go on Fiverr, they'll buy a bunch of backlinks, and then they'll get their site hit with something like that, or they'll go very, very white hat, and they'll be like just doing horror for the rest of their life, which is super cool. And you can do that, but you'll just be spending the next 10 years just writing content and like not making any money, which I don't think that's the goal for anybody, if that makes sense.
Yes,
So,
unless you're a copywriter, maybe. That's
yes, but not a real estate investor, but yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. So I'm still trying to like understand the like paint the picture of what the backend looks like. Maybe I don't know if you have these numbers or not. I didn't tell you to prep this beforehand, but like, do you know roughly like how many sites you have in total, like generating the leads? So I guess we'll start there.
There's probably, let me take a look. There's eight sites.
8 sites, and there's probably what I'd imagine 2 or 3 generating the majority of the leads, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, 8 sites, and then from there you have like, do you have other? I don't know what they're called, but like blog posts or like backlinks that you built to those. Like you also created like I guess like a web of backlinks, and then they go to those 8 sites. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, to some extent. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different strategies on the backlinking side, and so that's kind of what everybody has to work on in their own philosophy of SEO. But inevitably you need backlinks, and so we basically just created a network of domains that we use to backlink to these sites. A lot of them are hidden from the tools and stuff, but that's kind of what powers up the sites in some form. So how
many of those do you have? Do you know how many sites in the network?
That's difficult to say. There's quite a few. There's quite a lot, and you do need quite a lot to do what we're trying to do. If you're on the local scale though, you don't need as many. right?
I'm
So
not
like if I'm
trying to
just trying,
pitch that people should be doing this for their local market. I just curious. I just want to understand how your big ass operation works. I'm not, I don't think
there's thousands.
disclaimer, people shouldn't be doing what you're doing. Like it's gonna you work so much, it's gonna be a lot to
Yeah,
do that up front. I'm not and expensive to do, right, to build the thing, but I'm just trying to understand how it works.
I got
I'm
you.
just curious. Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah, no, so I mean, there's thousands of sites, right? It's quite a bit. But there's, we're selling links off those sites to other people. Other people are buying links from those sites, so like we're able to, kind of maneuver and make it its own operation, which is why there's two different businesses. But in some ways they go a bit hand in hand. Which is tricky because like we were talking with our we have another partner on the propertyleads.com side, which is the pay per lead brand.
That's where you sell the leads. Propertyleads.com. Anyone can go there. I can go there and I can buy leads anywhere I want. I don't have a script that I'm reading that he told me to say, but that is the case, right? That is what it is.
That is the case. That wasn't like a pitch, but I was like, I'm trying to separate the brands. So there's that brand, and then there's SEO meets REI, right? And like the reason why they're very distinct is because one is about leads and the other one's about helping people get leads, if that makes sense. And so like the SEO meets REI is basically selling links so people can have better SEO so they can rank higher. And like we've seen really good success with that. It's not really a pitch. It's just like, it just works. Like that's how the algorithm works. And like, that's why we do it, because it's interesting and it's fun and it's very exciting. And on the pay per lead side, I mean, like people need leads. You want to do deals. Like SEO leads are the hottest leads. That's like full stop. And they're going to be the highest profit per deal. We've seen that over and over and over again. So like, why would you not want that? So those are the two pieces to it. And so SEO meets REI in a lot of ways drives property leads, even though it's much smaller in scale and in practice than property leads. If we're talking about the business infrastructure and stuff.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, I would say a lot of your team's time or your time, whatever, goes into building these back-end network of sites that link to your main sites, we'll say. And then so the thousands of sites, right? That's the work, a lot of the work that's involved. And you can correct me if I'm wrong here. And then that's like really the moneymaker is those things. And then you have this network, and then you basically have monetized it two ways, or really three ways. One, you can leverage this network to provide like citations and links to other investors for their own websites. That's one way. The second way is you use it for your own sites to generate leads, which you then sell on your property leads website, or you close the deals with your partner, basically on a national level, right? And is that the business model? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, more or less, yeah. And I would say, I mean, I wouldn't say we spend most of our time on that, the domain stuff. We have other people involved in that on a partnership level that work on that side of stuff. So I'm not like saying on day to day, like buying domains and going through the process of scraping them, putting them together and stuff like that. But that is the core part of that business for sure, 100%. Interesting. In the same way that like you don't do the sales for your PPC business, if that makes sense. So everybody has their own roles and responsibilities with their organization. If that makes sense.
Gotcha. So you have you people that you hire that do that. Someone does it. It's just not you, right?
Yes, correct.
Got it. Okay. What other components and what is involved in that? If I'm trying to get super nitty gritty. Yeah, I don't know like how comfortable
that part is it gets technical, right? So like what you're looking for is referring domains. Like you have to build, so there's a custom scraper that goes out there looking for expired domains. You're looking for referred domains. You're looking for certain DR metrics. So we look at DR as our metric.
Domain rating,
yeah. And you're looking, ideally, if you can get something within the niche or something that has some traffic to it, that'd be good. Even though traffic is not really an indicator of success, it's just an indicator that the domain doesn't have some level of toxicity with Google. Because it's funny, you don't really deal with toxicity on the page level or like on the normal site to site level kind of thing. But if you're talking about 301 domains or using a domain to sell links off at other people, you want to make sure it's good and it's clean. It's going to deliver results. So we have to go through a few extra steps to make sure it gets to that point.
So are these expired domains that people bought already, or because there's no traffic to a domain that doesn't exist, right?
Expired domains would be like a domain that existed and then dropped. Expired effectively, and then you're buying it back and bringing it back to life in some form. So there's also like there's expired, there's auction, there's deleted, there's different ways you can go.
Interesting. That's a crazy world. I knew nothing about.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's a $1 trillion industry, but it's definitely a multi-billion-dollar industry, the domain world, and like the domain world and then the selling the links world. I mean, I know a guy, he's doing I think $500,000 a year just selling links. Different guy, different industry. Yeah, but it's like its own vertical and stuff. which is cool.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a different business, but it's a sketchier business, because like what can happen is like if Google comes through one day and wipes out a network, that could be really bad, right? Because then like you could lose a lot of the links going to your site. And so of course we have to take a lot of precautions, we have to do a lot of things to make sure that it doesn't happen like
So
that.
Google could just come in and if they can figure out, if they can frame your network, they can cut it all out at once, basically. That's
They
terrifying.
could, in theory. I mean, for what we're doing, that's not going to happen. But for what other people may be doing, that definitely could happen. So, like, if you set it up incorrectly, you could definitely run into that problem. So, like, there's like certain precautions you would take, like making sure that all your registrars are different, making sure that the hosts are all different, making sure that there's not a lot of interconnections between all the links and stuff like that. Which is why the network is so big. So it's like, if we sell 100 links to one person, it's going to come from 100 domains. Well, we might not sell any links from those domains for another like 6 months to anybody else in the real estate investing space. So like it could be totally different from that point. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like it's our livelihood's on the line, right? So like we're very careful with what we're doing on this side.
Of course, yeah.
So it's all part of it. The backlink side is tricky because like you can't. It's like trying to explain like a whole other vertical, right? So it's like going over to a Facebook ads guy and then trying to dive into what makes people click on ads, right? Because like that alone is its own marketing channel. There's like Facebook ads, like how to become really good at Facebook ads, and there's how to become really good at getting people to click on something.
There's a technical thing and then there's strategic thing, right?
Yeah. And so the SEO side is the strategic thing. So it's like, here's what you do. And like I can give that away for free. The technical stuff becomes really nuanced and complicated. And like honestly, like I wouldn't recommend people to get into that unless they wanted to start selling links. Like that's like it's completely different business. It's like owning McDonald's and then trying to own like a LL Beans or something. Like it's not. Right. They're both businesses, but they're not like the same like vertical. If that makes sense.
Do you like LL Bean? Do you shop there?
Yeah, I'm from Maine, so yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Okay, so there's the back end, like that's the technical part of like building out these domains, right? They're called referring domains, as that's right,
yes.
Referring domains. And yes. Then you have people that you hire to do that. What other component would you say is involved besides that? Let's say it's the pie. What percentage of the pie, I guess we'll call it the juice or the value of your giant network, what percent is the referring domains? And then what else is in the pie that attracts so many leads?
So about 30% is probably the link side, 30 to 40%. And the other 30 to 40% was probably gonna be the on-page side. It's like really dialing in the on-page content and making sure that it's super crisp and super clean when it comes to Google reading it. Because the thing that people tend to misrecognize is that Google is a bot. It is an algorithm. It is not a person. And so they cannot understand quality content. Like you can rank there's a really good example of a guy ranking, is in like the plastic surgery niche, I think. And he was like ranking a page down in Dallas and it was just like lorem ipsum. And he just put the keywords in the right places. And then it ranks the page like number 1, number 2, that area. That's the example there is that like Google can't actually read that content. Like there's nothing actually to read. It's just looking for the keywords in the right places, the keyword density, the entities, things like that. And so once they see that, the page is going to start to rank because it becomes relevant to that query. And so it's not as simple as just like up your keyword density, call today kind of thing, but it's getting those keywords on the page, getting those entities on the page. And so when we look at entities, the two biggest things we talk about are like the depth of entities and then the spread of entities. And so the depth is like how many times do you say the top entities the right number of times. So like the top entities are buy, sell, house, fast, and cash. How many times do you say that on the page? And then if you're talking about the spread of entities, that's like how wide is that page? How wide is that net? And so like on a page where you're talking about selling your house for cash, are you also talking about probate? Are you talking about divorce? You're talking about foreclosure? You're talking about like all the pieces that are intertwined with that core concept. And so you could look at that on the page level. But you could also look at that you can kind of look at that on the domain level. And this is something that people are talking a lot about recently, which is like topical authority or topical relevance. And I'm not
in the domain name.
Not in the domain name, but in the domain's network of pages. If that makes sense.
The referring domains going to
not the referring domains. Like we're just talking about the on-page content now. So like we look at like HomeLight. Like HomeLight's written an article about freaking everything, right? I think I swore, but everything. They've written everything at this point. I don't know if that. I don't know if this is PG-13 or not.
There we go. You're good. All good.
So they've written everything, right? To some extent, and what we're still trying to determine is how much of that content really passes from one page to another. And so it's still up in the air. I don't know. I don't really have a good answer to that question, but if it does pass from one page to another, that's gonna be really critical. But we do know is that like having, and people call them pillar posts sometimes, but like having one page that talks about everything is usually gonna rank a lot better than having one page that talks about one individual tiny little piece. So like, what is probate that's 40,000 words long and talks about every intricacy of probate is going to rank a lot better than like who inherits the house after a divorce in the state of North Carolina based on the sibling privacy law or something. You know,
topic based, not necessarily long tail keyword phrase based.
Right? Yeah, because like Google, I mean, there's this concept of like the entity graph, which is basically just this graph of like little nodes. Every node is a word, and they're all like interconnected, right? So Obama's connected to the White House connected to Trump is connected to can't remember her name, but Melania, it goes around. It's a giant, Melania. It's a spider web, right? And so it's like when you write about probate, you need to make sure that every single node is like that has ever been connected to probate, or like the second or third or fourth degree of probate is connected back in that article in some form. So you say it in that article.
Gotcha. And your research, you help determine what the nodes are and the relational keywords, right? I mean, that's a keyword research thing on on an advanced level, right?
I'd say on a basic level. Yeah. I mean, like the hard part is like, you don't know what Google's looking for because it's a closed box, but you have your gut and you know what other people are doing, what's working, because you can see who's ranking number 1 through 10, right? And so like on the probate level, the research side makes a lot of sense, but if you're talking about selling your house for cash, there's only so much you should really be expected to say, right? And so it's like, now you have to go back there and determine. So like what we'll do is we'll scrape the whole US, we'll scrape every single SERP, and we'll basically say, okay, how many times did they say this entity on this page in this SERP?
Search engine results page, SERP SERP.
Yeah, and so like, we'll go to, let's say, we'll search everything in California, every possible keyword variation in California. We'll add up all the total entities. We'll divide by the number of times we searched on that SERP, and we'll end up with an average. Like that's the average time that this entity's been used on this page. And so we'll make sure we go back to our site and then we use that entity even more time, right? We want to make sure we use it even more. And so the on-page stuff is probably the most important part of the entire process, but it's the hardest part to do for people, which is why it's hard to sell, and which is why it's hard for agencies to actually do. Most agencies don't even do it; they just skip right over it, which is fine. But it's probably the most critical part.
And that's a large part of what you teach on your SEO meets REI page, right? I feel like a lot of the questions are based on page SEO and page structure and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So we talk a lot about that kind of stuff, and people see good results from it. I mean, obviously, this is the part where it gets technical and it becomes nitty-gritty and it becomes a lot of work and effort, but it's also the part that separates you from the pack, right? So it's kind of like when you're doing direct mail, like you're gonna have to test stuff, you're gonna have to change things, you're gonna have to try things to make sure it works in your market. Yeah, that's that part. The backlink side is, it's more of an art than a science versus the back, at least in my opinion. But on the backlink side, it's like that is just a process. You just have to do it. And so like you don't have to work with me, you can work with someone else, but like you're gonna have to buy backlinks from someone, or you're gonna have to go out there and make your own. And like, if you want to do that, that's fine too. It's just gonna take you a long time.
Got it. Okay. So back to the pie here. We got, let's say, about a third of the referring domains. A third is the on-page structure. What's left?
I think the last third is probably the x-axis and time under the bar. It's probably not even a third. It's probably only like a couple, maybe 10 to 20%, maybe more of it's really just the on-page side of it. But time under the bar and the x-axis is probably from what we've seen, it's a huge part of it.
So if you took your system, let's just say you could just, like, you were a wizard and you snapped your fingers and it went from nothing to having thousands of domains and pages just built in an instant. I guess theoretically someone could do that, but that necessarily wouldn't immediately get you 1,100 leads a month. Like you're saying, there's this other X factor intangible, which is time or trust from Google, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and you can't avoid it either. We tried to figure out how to speed it up. And that's something we're working on right now, but the speeding it up is tricky. So like people talk a lot about like domain age. And again, I'm not sure how technical you want to get in this interview versus like high level, but on the technical side, people talk about a lot about domain age, right? So someone will go out there, they'll buy an old domain or something like that to like try to rank it faster because it's older. And like, I'm not convinced at all that the age of the domain matters at all. What I do think matters is the age of the page and how long that age of the page plus how long has that page been in a relevant SERP. And relevant SERP is really hard to define. That's something that nobody can really figure out until they try it, which is very, very tricky, I think. But like a relevant SERP would be, for example, like we take something that's like for land for sale by owner, and we just change the intent of the page to sell my house, like sell my land for cash, right? Or sell my house for cash or something like that. I think that would be the same intent. And if that's the same page on the same domain and it's just an older domain, it's going to rank a lot faster. And so we have two very interesting example sites. We have one example site where it's a very, very old domain. The pages are brand new, last 3 months or so ago, but they don't rank as well yet because the pages are new, right? And Google has no concept of domains. They only have the concept of pages. And so if the page is new, the domain might as well be new as well. Versus we have another site where we kept the age of the page, and the age of the page is probably like 20 years old, and it was just like that, right to the top, just like that.
Interesting.
The name doesn't sound nice. Just had to fix the on page and stuff. And so there's this legacy index. I wouldn't call it legacy index, but there's this legacy factor to Google. Sometimes we call it like the legacy advantage. So it's like when you have like that really old site that's been sitting in that second.
That's why you're trying to buy like expired domains and stuff, right? Because they have some age to it. Is my
yeah, I mean that's kind of part of it. It's also just a cheaper way to buy power. So like when you're talking about buying power, which is what you're trying to pass to the site, you can buy power via you have to buy power in some form. So that could be you go there and you build 10 million Web 2.0s. You're not going to pass much power, but if you build enough of them, you'll pass some power, right?
Which is like social, like Twitter sites and stuff like that, or blog posts,
blog comments, basically. We'll call it blog comments. So like, there's not much power from the blog comment, but like if you build enough of them, eventually at some point you'll get there. But like if you want to buy power that's cheaper, you have to go start buying guest posts or PBNs or things like that. And so then it's
blog
like
networks, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, got it.
Which like that's its own host of things, because it's like if you get yourself into the wrong PBN and then it gets caught, like and if it's actually a public network,
and
like
you're going to get nixed.
You could get nixed, yeah, and we've seen it happen many, many times. So that's its own game. But the second piece to it was, what was the other thing I was saying?
Okay,
I can't remember what I was saying. Sorry.
All good. So yeah, I want to shift a little bit because my brain's starting to hurt. This is like super technical. And I'm struggling to keep up. I'll be honest with you. I'm trying. We have the recording, so we can go back and listen to it. But it's a lot. And to me, like, I think it's just important to understand. For me, I'm just curious to understand the whole system. And it sounds like we've cracked it. It's the referring domains, which you have a lot of, which you hire out. You have the on-page stuff, which you probably also train a team member to do, right? And you've probably already done at this point, right? You have 8 pages.
Well, so we do it. We have to do it ourselves, which is the hardest part, because it's an
art, not a science. You can't really teach it.
It's really hard to teach. I know. So my friend Keith, Keith's saying as well. He's like, we've talked. He and I have talked about this stuff a lot, and so like he gets it. Like he's probably the only person selling like an agency style service that like I think actually understands real SEO when it comes down to it. It's like he gets results for people like it's crazy. I love seeing it because they're like so surprised. They're like, I can't believe you could actually do this in such a short period of time. That kind of stuff. And like, so he's trying to figure out how to scale it, but it's really hard. Like you can't, because like it changes over time too. It'll shift, it'll move. And so like, and the problem that we ran into is like on one of our domains, like sellmyhousefast.com, like we have 2,800, 2,700 city pages, something like that. And it's like, we're not going to go to every single individual page and customize every single one. So we're going to do one page and we're going to all of them. Right. And so like, in theory, the best site would be customize every single page to make sure it's the top one. Okay. But that's really hard. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I want to switch gears a little bit. What I don't understand is how you went from like all this stuff is like so advanced to me. It's like super technical. How the heck did you learn all this stuff being in ballistics in the Navy? Like how did you become so good at this? Because there's a lot of I think there's a lot of people doing SEO and real estate investing to some extent. There's a lot of agencies out there. that offer this service. And I don't feel like any of them necessarily, and I don't know that, I could be wrong here, but they don't like get it as much as you. Like they're not building this giant network. I don't know if it's just like your business model is working really well, because of your ability to build your own marketplace and then leverage it with other people as well for multiple streams of income. But what's the X factor with Andy? How did you get to this point where I feel like you've leapfrogged other people who've been in the business potentially even longer than you? What are your thoughts?
More time out of the bar. We spend more time in it. That's about it. I mean, we've been working like nonstop since we started. We haven't stopped. Like we don't weekends. Like we could have done this interview on Sunday or Saturday. I would still be here at 2 p.m. in the same seat. You know what I mean? So I would still be here. So definitely time under the bar, because like it doesn't matter how long you're. What do you say?
You think it's like just work ethic?
Putting
more time into it. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't think we're extra smart or anything like that. Like, I mean, I don't think we're dumb, but like, I don't think we're super geniuses either. Like, I don't think we're the best SEOs either. Like, I think we're some of the best SEOs in the real estate space for sure. But I don't, in the world, there's definitely better SEOs out there. They're probably really expensive. They're probably 10, 20, 50 grand a month, or they're really hard to find or something. But yeah, we're not the best SEOs, but we're good. But I think I think maybe like the willingness to try new things, like to break from, like if you base your learning on SEO from like what you see on the news, like in the SEO news or on Reddit or like Black Hat World or like whatever forum you go to, like you're not going to get very far. You got to test a lot of stuff. And like we had to build a lot of custom stuff too. And maybe part of why we're successful is because we built a lot of custom software to do what we're trying to do. So like we build like the custom scraping stuff to go across and like map out like how we rank across the regions and stuff. That was super custom. And like I think you were there at the first Care Camp where we showed the early stages of that software. Things like that. Yeah, I think that piece right there was probably super critical to our success. I think we've talked about that ad nauseum on the Carrot Cast and a little bit now, and in the Facebook group ad nauseum, but people still don't do it. I mean, it's insane to me because like people like that's the difference between getting 5 to 10 leads a month and getting 60 to 100 to 200 leads a month. Is just that change. And they're all high quality leads. It's the same lead, just a different area.
I mean, you're able to rank higher than me in my own market in Delaware pretty quickly, and I've had the site since 2015. So, and I'm also not implementing the stuff that you're telling me to do necessarily. So there you go.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
There you go. So
yeah. Well, Delaware is also unique too, because you actually technically do. So the piece we're talking about is like the state page is the page that drives the most leads. Right. And so if you look at a map of the US, or if you go zip code by zip code and you search like we buy houses, generic search terms, whatever you want to search, and you see what pages pop up, most often it's going to be a state page, not a city page. And so building out all these city pages and powering up all these city pages and making these city pages the best city pages in the world don't actually get you that many more leads. And so if you go like to Delaware is a really good example of this, because most of Delaware is just the state page. Actually, only very small word is the city page and stuff. It's like Wilmington, Norfolk, and then like Smyrna, I think is the other one or something like that.
Yeah.
And so like in our state or our Delaware site, like I think we get 15 leads a month. I think 13 of them are from the state page. The other 2 are from city pages. And it's crazy. Like, yeah, most of the population's in Wilmington, which is a city, but it's like, that's not like, my favorite example is I live in Alexandria, Virginia, right? I live in Alexandria, Virginia. My zip code, my postal address, I'm right here. If I search for my house, we buy houses, the state page pops up.
It's interesting. That's just Google decided to do that for whatever reason.
Yeah. And so like you have to, there's no value in like mapping out where they decide to do that, but what's valuable is mapping out which cities pop up city pages when you search generic keywords, which like, and then the part was like figuring out, okay, well, we actually care about the state page a lot more because most of the state is a state page. Most of the population centers are state pages. Gotcha. So like Alexandria is like 12 zip codes, only 3 of them or 4 of them pop up a city page. Gotcha. And then you see the same pattern across the US, regardless of location. And then there's interesting nuances too, not to interrupt, sorry, but like Reston, Virginia is 70,000 people. 70,000 people live in Reston, Virginia, right?
Okay.
Only state page. There's not even a city page for that area. So like if you had a Reston city page, you wouldn't even get leads. Wouldn't matter.
Yeah, it'll show that you're ranking number 1, but it really doesn't matter, right? In a
Yeah.
way, because it's not, that's the part people don't understand. And I haven't heard many other people talk about that. So I'm grateful for you. I'm the information you're sharing. Facebook group SEO meets REI, completely free. Check it out. Check it out. I'm technically an admin in the group, though I've added probably zero value to it. Don't remove me, please. I will. I swear. I get in there. So I want to shift a little bit into talking about kind of the last section of the interview. We'll say, well, let me ask you this. I know you said you were excited to come on the podcast. Is there something that you want to talk about specifically that you feel like would be appropriate for this podcast versus, maybe more cookie cutter one?
I think Alex Mosey is the greatest thing since
Okay.
sliced bread.
Okay.
I just, we've taken a lot of inspiration on business model and operating a business from him. And I don't think, actually, I shouldn't even say Alex Mosey. It's really Layla and Alex Mosey, because like she's a lot of the driving force too, and he just gets a lot of the credit. Which I know he talks about that in some ways too, but she's crazy smart. So that's been super powerful for us. And then well, yeah, that was the big thing. I think the other big thing for us is like similar to Alex and Layla, like we operate a relationship-based business. So like we're in a relationship, we're also in a business together. And so like that's both a complicating factor, but it's also makes it a lot easier because man, our life is like really simple. Like I don't have to switch my brain off and start talking to like, you know what I mean? Like it's a constant rotation of the same thing. So I love that. I mean, I love that we get to work together all the time and stuff.
Is it?
So
I know Alex mentioned Alex Hermosi. If you don't know him, check him out. $100 million offers book. One of the best business books ever published, in my opinion, at least in the last 20 years. But he was on the Graham Stephan podcast, and he was talking about how, like, I forget, I don't know what the framework he used, but basically because him and his wife work together at the same business, that they actually have to focus on separating versus coming together, because they're together all the time. So they've made an intention to be in different departments, to be on different meetings and stuff. And I'm wondering, I know you guys don't have this like huge operation with, dozens of employees. So do you find yourself in the same circumstance, you and Liz, where because you're working, together all the time, that you have to intentionally create space between you guys, so that, if you ask her how her day was, she'd be like, you were sitting next to me all day. Why are you asking me this question?
Yeah, we literally ran into that problem because we used to work in the same office together, and that ended very quickly. Like now we work in separate offices. We see each other at lunch, for maybe a walk or something like that, but we don't talk until dinner. Unless we're like brainstorming on like work activities and stuff. But yeah, 100%. That was huge. Getting out of that space and stuff. 100%.
What do you like most about Alex Hermosi? Like what? let's take Alex and Layla aside, but like the concepts. What to you is so powerful about it, in your opinion? And how have you applied it to your business?
The biggest things that I've been taking away are the individual problems that they ran. It's actually, their story is probably the most interesting impact that we've had, because every problem they ran into in their story per se, like the story of them starting the gym and then doing the next thing, and then like the problems they ran into along the way, we've run into every single one of those problems. And like we've been able to avoid many of them because of their story and how they explain their story. We've only relearned a lesson that they told one time, which like that sounds really stupid, because why are we relearning the same lesson? But sometimes you make mistakes along the way. Yeah, sometimes you make mistakes along the way too. But like throughout that process, we learned 20 lessons that we didn't make that mistake on. And so like, man, like that alone, incredible. And like just having the life lesson of that portion of it. And so like one thing I get back to is like they talk about like the processors. He was trying to process money, and then he was categorized as high risk, right? And now he's no longer able to process money. Well, we ran into that same issue with property leads. We're when we first started out, like all the processors started to like get kind of scrambling and stuff. And so we were trying to get other processors on board. We have like all these processors now and stuff like that, and they're all like they're super sketchy, right? Like they're all companies, but they're all like a little sus and stuff. And so like working through that process and trying not to make those same mistakes again has been super critical. Like, because like people will say like, oh, why don't you just go use Stripe? Well, Stripe's not a processor. Like Stripe's an aggregator of processors. And so like if Stripe pulls the rug from you, you're done. You're screwed. Like you're out. And they pull the rug from people all the time. And so anyone who runs on Stripe right now, like you don't actually have a process, or you have no agreement. You're like in this aggregated pool of other people who happen to have an aggregated pool of other processes. So like Stripe is like this middle guy. There's a bunch of people on this side, and then there's a bunch of processors on the other side, and they just aggregate all the risk together. And so if they ever think that you're outside that risk tolerance, which is like very, very small risk tolerance, you're gone.
Interesting. I don't think a lot of people spend the time to evaluate risk appropriately in business, right? That's a business risk that people just, not saying you should or shouldn't use Stripe, but it's understanding the risk involved. People don't
100%.
think about it, including myself. I didn't,
100%.
like, so.
Yeah. And it's not a rag on anybody. Like if people want to use Stripe, they should use Stripe, but like there is going to be a risk if you one day can no longer process money, or if one day they say we're going to hold on to all your funds in your account for the next 6 months as a waiting period, right? Well, that wouldn't be good. I mean, that happened to Alex Ramosi. He had $100,000 in his Stripe account, gone for 6 months.
Crazy. Yeah.
What do you do?
So how do you? I feel like you have this really good understanding, or at least awareness of risk. You were talking about it as well with your referring domain network. There's a risk that Google could wipe you out, but you are taking the necessary steps to hedge against that. Same thing with the Stripe you're talking about. Where did you develop? I think, and I think personally, this is part of the reason why you are also successful. I think people who understand risk well can do well in business. Time risk, business, financial risk, whatever. Where do you think that piece developed for you? Understanding risk.
I think it was just trying stuff over time, like trying to fail. I think you could even bring it back to like high school or something too, where like you're constantly like, or college or whatever, where you're making a mistake, getting in trouble, like doing the next thing, right? And then like the next time you see an opportunity to make that same mistake, you try to either adjust or you just don't make the same mistake in the first place, right? And like you see how it plays out over time. And I made a lot of mistakes. Like I'm not a smart I'm not a smart guy.
Experience.
But yeah, you might call it experience maybe, but yeah. So yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I think time under the bar. I think time under the bar is probably the most critical piece to anything. And it's like, how can you accelerate time under the bar for you as an individual? And like the biggest thing is not going to be just like living longer. It's going to just be like doing it more over a period of time. So like working weekends, working at night, like, and working could be relative. It could be like, if you want to become the best bouncer, like bounce all the time. You know what I mean? If you want to become the best bar owner, like run the bar all the time. So you're the best guy who runs bars. Guy or girl.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you see my my recent YouTube video I came out with, I didn't share it with anybody, so I got like no views on it. I came out like last week. It's about like basically about not working hard. Have you seen that video that I published? Maybe not.
Not from last week. I think I might have seen it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyway, I think and this is something I've like been grappling with as well for myself, but like, I had the video, not just video, but my business model of like, last year I made $95,000 working 1 hour a month, right? That's like my buzz title thing. And that's because I have a partner and I do SEO and PPC, and then I have a partner who does the work and I don't have to do that much work. And for me, like I would love your thoughts on, how do I say it? Like hard work versus not, because for me, I do think hard work is important and like you need to work hard as well. But at the same time, I at least take a certain amount of like pride in like the ability to do things, make money, get stuff done without working hard, and I'm curious what your philosophy on working, because you work really hard. And I know you mentioned like, hey, Tim, like, you could, help us out, but it would be a lot of hard work. And I'm like, I don't know if I really want to work that hard, to be honest, and I'm like, so, what do you think about some of the stuff that I say of like, working hard is overrated. Like hustle culture is not good. That kind of stuff. Do you have any opinion on that? I like to have an honest discussion about it.
Yeah, man, I think it depends on your goals, right? Like, I think it sounds like you're in a happier place with where you're at right now, which is like, that's awesome. I literally cannot wait until I'm there. You know what I mean? But I think Trevor might call it, like Trevor Mock might call it like the bag of wise, right? Or he might take that from someone else too. I'm not sure, but like your bag of wise is smaller right now, therefore you don't feel the same level of activity to work on something. Like my bag of wise is, I would say, medium right now. Like I have a bag of wise to get to a certain point, but like we look at Alex Ramosi, he is like an insanely big bag of wise, right? And so like that's why he's constantly, like he works harder than I do. You know what I mean? Like he's super deep into it. And so I think there's like that spectrum, right? And I don't think it's bad to be on any, or good to be in any part of that spectrum. I just think it depends on what you want to do with your life. And either you want to generate more big bag of, you either want to generate more wise to move forward in a direction or move in some kind of direction, or you don't. And
Okay.
I think that's okay. What do you think about that?
The conclusion I've come to is I think working hard should come after you figure out what you love doing. I think working hard should be more of an effect than a cause on a general level. I obviously, like, if you have to work 3 jobs to pay rent and stuff, like I get it, but I think in the long run, if you're working hard at something that you really don't like to do, that I guess if you're like, the stuff you should be working hard is stuff that you would do even if you didn't get paid. Like you're working hard because you just enjoy the activity itself. Like you enjoy the journey and the progression of it. And I think, to me, that's the healthiest way to like work hard persistently for years and years and years, because you just like love what you're doing. And whether you succeed or failure isn't the point. The point is the work itself. And for me, like I've gotten burnt out working hard, doing things I don't like doing. And I think that's when people get into trouble. And for me now, like I'm trying to figure out the next phase of my career. What do I actually like really enjoy doing? Like what, and I've asked myself this all the time. What would I do every single day if like I didn't need any money whatsoever? Like if none of it mattered, like what would I actually do with my time? And that's the question I've never really asked myself. It's always been about money. It's always been about money. So for me, like I'm enjoying, like I want to do more of these podcasts. Like I really enjoy this kind of stuff, and YouTube videos. I'm exploring what I like and don't like about it. And for me, like I will get to a point where I will probably work harder than I ever have in my life, but it's because I found something I really love doing, and it probably won't feel like work, if that makes sense.
I can buy into that. The one nuance to talk about is like for Liz is a really good example of this. Is like she doesn't like real estate that much. Like real estate's not her passion at all. But she loves what we do. And she didn't get to the point of loving what we do until we got deeper into doing it, if that makes sense. So like when we first started, she hated it. But like I was like kind of like the tugboat kind of thing. But like now she's her own lighthouse. You know what I mean? Like she's out there like carving her own path kind of thing within the space.
What was the switch there though? What she must be doing different things that she was doing at the start, right?
Yeah, she's been able to delegate certain things that she didn't like to do, for sure, which is obviously part of it, right? And part of that does come with time and experience, to the point where you can like understand something so well that you can delegate it.
Right.
And I think the other part of it too is just like so I can talk about the income stream side of it. Like we did not like the wholesaling income stream. It's
up and down.
It's very up and down. Like you'll have months where like you'll make no money, and you'll have months where you make 6 or sometimes 7 figures. Like it's just in all over the place, right? And so like it's feast and famine. So like you'll be great, you'll feel really good one month, and then the next 2 months you're gonna be like, I don't know how we're gonna survive in next year. Like what are we gonna do? So I don't like that side of it.
Right.
And so that's why switching over for us to like a PPL model, where like we are obviously taking a lot of risk, and like we're helping people out a lot and get to like, I think real estate investing, you can make a lot of money. Like I have no doubts or qualms about that. I just don't think that purely wholesaling will get you very far in the long run. I think you have to be able to take that money and invest in something else that's more money generating over a longer period of time. And like,
why do you think I started an agency, man?
Yeah.
I went for, so
and it's hard for us to like, this isn't like a pedestal thing. Like we're, sitting here like talking about how we're helping other, like it's not that at all. It's more like, if you're in the real estate investor shoes, like I really hope you're buying rental properties right now. Or I really hope, you're getting out there, like getting involved in syndications of multifamily, or you're like buying land to like sit on it and hold on for the next like 6 to 12 years or something like that. Because like if you're not and you're just wholesaling, you will burn out. Like I guarantee you'll burn out. You're gonna hate yourself in a couple years because you're gonna
I
be doing the
think
same
though,
thing.
I don't know if I think there are a certain percent of people that really that love it. I don't think there's that many, but like Greg, who I had on the podcast as well, he's not gonna he doesn't do only wholesaling forever. And I think he does have a couple rentals, so this isn't like exactly applied, but he loves the game. Like if he didn't make, I asked him, I was like, if you didn't make any money, like if money didn't matter, what would you do? And he said he would do the same exact thing. He loves doing deals. He loves negotiating. And I'm like, dude, I'd be a million miles away from it. I just not me. But I think some people who just enjoy the deal making of it, you know, could like doing it. I think it's a small percentage of it. And I think you have to be successful enough to be able to delegate certain parts. Like no one wants to go at 3 a.m. putting up bandit signs, right? So
yeah, and I think that's the stuff that burn. I think that's the stuff I'm talking about that burns people out. Like, I think you're talking about Greg Helbeck, and I've listened to his podcast a couple times, but it sounds like he's got a very structured system.
he
Right,
delegates.
like,
he delegates the stuff he doesn't like doing. Right. So there you go.
Yeah.
As
so it's very easy once you're delegating the stuff you don't like doing
that's
find
true.
Yeah.
You're right. I think you're right. There's a caveat with like, okay, work hard doing the stuff that you like doing, but you need to get to a point where you can delegate. And I maybe take that for granted a little bit. And like, I don't want to talk about YouTube too much, but like, I'm just a recent example for me is I suck. Like I suck at storytelling. Like this is all new for me. Like I've never been really that great on camera and like, and communicating really intentionally and effectively. And I find myself feeling like a beginner. And some of it I've been like, man, this sucks. Like I don't enjoy doing this. Like it's taking me 3 weeks to write a script for a video that 50 people are going to watch. I'm like, what am I doing here? But I think there is like this temporary time where you have to like learn the skills of it to get to a point where you can delegate it. Like I need to do the things I love doing with YouTube and the things I hate doing with it, so I can learn what I like and what I hate, and then I can make decisions down the road to delegate, and then get to a point where say, oh, I love YouTube, yeah, because I delegated 80% of the shit I don't like, right? So I think there's a temporary time, and temporary could be 3 months, it could be 3 years. You know, I think it depends on what you're doing and whatnot. So I think you're right. I to me, that is a very important part of it. And some people never get there, and that's why they need to go to the SEO meets REI Facebook group, and they can learn how to get there so they can make enough money to delegate the SEO stuff they didn't like doing in the first place.
Well, so one other piece I want to touch on, and we talked about this on the most recent Caracast, which is also coming out soon, but it's like, you know, I mean, I think it's funny, like, I don't know how to say this properly, but it's like real estate investors, especially wholesalers, like at the beginning stages, like they don't want to invest in rental properties. They don't want to, they just want to have the active income and stuff like that.
That's like me. I'm literally just like that.
Yeah. And so like eventually you eventually need to convert over to something like that, right? Either rental properties, but like the other option is that website, right? Because it's like a website in a lot of ways is very similar to rental property, right? It produces income, it produces leads, right? Something you can generate money off of. And like you can also sell it, you can trade it, you can barter it, you can lease it. Like it's just like a rental property and stuff. And so like as people talk about buying up rental properties and stuff like that, like I know a guy in North Carolina, he's got like 100 rental properties, Georgia, he's got like 100 rental properties. He doesn't want to invest any money in his site. And every time I talk to him, he just complains about how he's getting no leads. Right. I'm like, dude, like sell a rental property, invest in your site, and then like you're gonna get leads and you're gonna make more money, buy more rental properties. You're gonna be a really happy camper. And so there's I just see this like this misalignment with goals where it's like I see a website as a investment, maybe not a literal physical asset, but as an investment, and most people do not. And I'd like to see more people fall into that category, because if you do that, you will be more successful. Well, actually, I don't want people to do that because then it makes it harder for me. But people should never do that, right?
You know,
because they're going to make more money.
I guess in 2019, the summer of 2019, I tried selling my website. That's when I was like starting to go all in with my PPC agency, and I was selling my wholesaling website. I didn't have the attention to do full-time wholesaling and my agency and working with Carrot too. I was like, this is too much. So I was like, I didn't enjoy the wholesaling. The income was up and down anyway. I moved to California. My business is in Delaware, and I tried selling my site. I reached out to the big wholesalers I knew in my market, also some in Pennsylvania. I think I talked to like 3 people. I was selling it for, I think, $15,000. I was trying to get for it. And I think maybe 15 was too much. It would have been like, I think I would have taken like 5 or something like that, but I didn't do it. And we can talk maybe about, what you think of a website valuation. maybe the price was too high, but no one wanted it for whatever reason. And then the next year he ended up generating $180,000 in wholesale fees with it. And I didn't, it was like from SEO, like, you know, I'm like, no one wanted to spend 5 to 15 grand on the site, and it generated almost 200 grand in income. And to me, I was like, I'm glad no one did it. And I'm glad I ended up not selling it and ended up finding a partner and making way more money. But to me, that was an example of like, doesn't make sense. But then there's the same time, there's a replacement cost where people could have just done it on their own too, right? So
yeah. And the hard thing to assign value to there is like the age, right? Like how long, because like me starting from scratch in Delaware versus a site that we already have in Delaware, like there is a value discrepancy there just because that site's already there. It already exists. Like the piece is already there. Like the x-axis, the time into the bar thing that we talked about with Google. That's
is it a good
occurred.
deal though? Is it a good deal? Like 5 to 15 grand for a site? I saw you make a face. I don't know if the face was like, that's too little, too much, or what, but
I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't spend 15 grand on a site like that, but
okay,
I'm sure someone would.
Well, yeah. Okay. All right. That's
but
fair.
like, I value the domain and I value the site a lot less. Like I see them as replaceable assets because like we've created a system to replace them very quickly, kind of thing. Versus like
what
other
about
people
someone though who doesn't know how to do it? Like someone who has no experience, you know, they would have to go learn how to do SEO. Like you were selling it to someone who literally doesn't know anything about SEO. Like to me, that makes the site more valuable, right? Or no?
So typically affiliate sites are sold at like about 30x multiple or 36x multiple, that's something like that. And so like the multiple would be like the monthly multiple of the revenue. And so like it's kind of hard to assign revenue in real estate investing, but if we just said a value of a lead is like in Wilmington, Delaware, it's probably like $100, $150, maybe $300, something like that. It kind of varies, right?
Right.
We'll say $200, right? And so it's like $200 times 10 leads a month. That's $2,000 a month times 36 is, oh gosh, I'm gonna do math. It's 50 is 60
24 grand a year. 24 grand a year.
Yeah, 24 grand.
Oh, sorry, you were doing different math.
Well, I was doing times 30 months.
Okay.
So like times 30x, which would be, 60 grand. So like, is that site worth 60 grand? Maybe.
Doesn't
maybe
sound
not.
like it.
I wouldn't pay 60 grand for it. But like, if you're looking, that's how affiliate sites are sold.
Right. But then but affiliate sites would have like the income is there. Like you could just get a lead and you have to, but okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna go down. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So, okay. We got to wrap this up here in like 15 minutes. So I want to make sure I get to a couple final topics. And I know you want to talk for like 3 hours, and we can hop on the podcast again and do it. I'm happy to do it. Okay, let me get a couple questions here. Okay, so with your system, I'm just thinking about like as much scaling as possible. In theory, your SEO system, if you could scale it globally, like if you had unlimited resources to build it out and you could scale it and let's across the globe, would it to me that I feel like the potential would be basically like unlimited leads. Would that be the case?
So the biggest problem you run into is that like leads in other countries are worth a lot less. So like we get leads in Canada right now, but it's like they're harder to, like leads in Toronto are worth a lot of money. Leads in Calgary are worth a lot of money, but like leads right outside of Toronto are not worth as much money. Right. And so like the value drops a lot faster. And the same thing with Australia. Right. And the same thing with the UK is a little bit different, but the same thing with most of Europe as well. And then like flipping houses outside the US is not as
right.
It's different. I'm not sure. Yeah, like in an Eastern country or more like socialist country, like the government support systems are so strong that like people don't really deal with foreclosure. Or like inheritance is not as common because people are literally inheriting the property down to their children. And like that's how they plan to use it. Because properties, like in Denmark, you get 10 grand from the government to buy a house. And the houses are worth $3 million and you're expected to buy a house because that's how you create liquidity in the market, right? And it's just like a random example, but it's like you're not dealing with foreclosure situations in Denmark. Like it's just not common.
Interesting.
But the markets that we've seen internationally that are interesting are the UK, Australia, and Canada. Those would be the three. And we've gotten leads in Mexico too, but it's like in Mexico and in Puerto Rico, like they don't give you a property address, they give you a lat long. And it's like, good luck looking up the county records with a lat long, man. So yeah, we don't touch Mexico.
So you're probably, are you gonna expand outside the country eventually?
I mean, we already get leads in Canada, so it's just, you know, I have no problem selling leads in other countries. I'm not personally going to be planning to invest in other countries outside the U.S. That's just not my swim lane.
Okay, so what do you think about and it's something I asked all the people on the podcast, but like, let's call them fake gurus. Let's call it, you know, it's a buzzword, but like social media success, you know, one could say toxic positivity. I like that word. But I like to get people's opinions on it, you know, either way. But do you think that a lot of people, like say on social media, posting about their deals, or even on podcasts like this, or case studies, I closed 50 grand, you know, 23-year-old made 50 grand in 2 weeks, you know, like podcasts like that. Do you think that, because I have, as people know, like I have a grudge with some types of content that comes out, which is why I started a podcast in the first place. But I'm curious on your point of view on some of the content that people see from other companies and social media about being successful in this business versus reality. Do you think there's a disconnect at all, or do you think I'm just pessimistic?
Huge disconnect. People are always lying about how many deals they're doing. This industry is very shady, realistically. Like, people are always constantly lying about the amount of deals they're doing and how much money they're making and stuff like that. And I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and he was saying, like, a really interesting question to ask people if you're trying to really gauge how much they're really doing, how much they really understand their numbers, is instead of asking how many deals did you do last month, to ask about what's your lead to close time. Because people like, they don't care about their lead to close time. They think it's a non-realistic factor, but like their lead to close time is a very good indication of how much money they actually make in their business. If their lead to close time is 60 days or something like that, like they have no system, they have no structure, they're all over the place, right? But their lead to close time is 21 days or like 14 days or something like that. They have a process, and that
you mean lead to close. What does that mean exactly?
Time from getting the lead to how many days until you close the property, like you got paid. So if your lead to close time is 14, 21, even a month or less, like you're making a lot of money, right? Because that means you get a lead and you close the deal, right? But if it's 60 days, that means like the deal's falling off the track, the seller died, you know, they don't want to, you had to file a memorandum. Maybe another wholesaler sold it underneath you, something like 60 days is a long time. That's a massive cash conversion cycle. Like you can't run a real business on that. That's part of the problem. So
yes,
when we talk to people, that's because people will tell us all the time, oh yeah, we did 10 deals last month. Well, did you really? Like, I don't, you know, because like if everybody's doing 10 deals a month, then like we just sold all the properties in the United States last month. You know what I mean? Like I don't buy it.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, cash conversion cycle, and that, I mean, to me, I don't know of anyone getting a lead in and then closing it in 21 days on average. I get it happens, but like one of our PPC guys who seems to be doing like, okay, I don't know how much money he makes, you know, overall, but he said his average time between when a lead comes in to when he gets paid is like 9 months. And I think some of them maybe flips, but like it just takes time, like follow-up systems, lead nurturing. Like not everyone's ready to go right away, you know.
Yeah, if he's doing flips, yeah, that's gonna be different.
Well, even wholesales though, like I mean, maybe that's my business isn't the most successful. Maybe it shouldn't be modeled off of, but like 3 weeks seems like really, like it can be done, but it seems like best case scenario. And it's discounting like follow-up. Like I think follow-up does matter. Like we've closed the deal that we ended up doing that was like 90K. It took us like a year and a half from when the lead came in because she wasn't ready and, you know, whatever, divorce or something like that. So
there's definitely like buckets of leads, right? Like there's the buckets of leads that like they close very quickly, right? And then there's the bucket of leads that take 6 to 9 months, and then there's a bucket of leads that are like 2+ years, right? And like everybody falls in one. Typically, people fall in one of like those buckets, or say I would say 6 to 12 months, but people typically fall in one of those buckets. And I think I'm really talking about more that early stage bucket, but that early stage bucket for most people is not within a month. People are not getting paid within a month. They're getting paid like, you know, they might sign the contract and then the contract goes out another 60 days because they gotta go find a buyer. Or like, it's a number that people don't care about talking about, but then when you actually dive into the numbers, they'll say they did 14 contracts last month, or they did 14 contracts last month, but then they did 2 the month before. Like that's not, you're not making money at that point.
Yeah, so. I agree. Yeah, that needs to be talked about more, is a cash conversion cycle. Basically, how quickly can you put money out and get it back? And then that's, I think, the lifeblood of really a marketing business, at least. You know, I think it's very, very important, and not people. And that's where the cash flow issue comes with the wholesaling business model. If you don't have, if you have a bad cash conversion cycle, or you're doing a low enough volume, it's stressful, and hence why I switch business models. So
the 2 things I like to add to that are so like that's the biggest problem with this business in general, is the fact that the cash conversion cycle is huge, right? Is like it's very hard to get into because the cash conversion cycle is so big. You can't flip an AC, you can flip an air conditioner by the end of the day, but you can't flip a house by the end of the day, right? But like you take it a step further, and it's like, what's something with a longer cash conversion cycle than houses? And it's land, right? Like we do land deals. I think we've got over 10 on our contract or something like that, and it's like, I think our lead to getting paid like a check at our house time, I think it took 6 months from like the first lead we got in our contract. Like took 6 months. Like that's insane. Like that is, and like I don't think that's gonna be like good. Like I think it's gonna get worse from there. Because like we're doing it, we're buying the land, we're listing it on the market, and then we're selling it. So we're double closing, and there's a period in between where we're reselling the land. Like it's gonna take forever. And so like for someone to get into wholesaling, like people talk about fast cash. Well, I mean, yeah, maybe fast cash if you get really good at it. But you try to get into like fast cash for land, like good luck. Like that is, it's gonna take forever. And you have to have liquidity too. Because if you're buying the land, like you either have to go to a hard money lender or like a land lender, which those guys are, they'll take they'll take everything.
Right.
Or you're doing like a HELOC on your house, or you're still paying interest somewhere. Like you're still paying the banker somewhere along the line. So
Yeah.
The cash conversion cycle is critical, and like whatever you can do in your business to shorten it is critical to your success. 100%.
Yeah, definitely. They don't talk about that when people get into business. I did a survey of like 130 investors, and I think the average was like, I told you this, like 6.5 months, 6.7 months to people get their first deal. And that wasn't even land, it was normal wholesale deals. And it's like, quick cash. Well, asterisk, kind of, but not really. Okay. So let me find like one last question here. Okay, maybe 2 questions. What do you think about AI in the future? I know you're saying Google is a bot. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, of like Jarvis AI. They can like write copy for you. And this is not like, this is maybe apples and oranges, but like, the Dolly 2, have you heard the Dolly 2, the artificial intelligence that basically you put in a prompt, like, elephant Armageddon or something, and it basically makes a picture for you. It's an artificial intelligence image generation software, and it's like insanely good. And you can put like George Washington eating dinner with monkeys or something, and it like actually spits out a realistic image. There's a wait list right now, and I've been waiting for like 6 months to get into it. But the point of me saying is artificial intelligence, I feel like, whatever the word artificial intelligence means, but like that technology, I feel like is getting better and better. Do you see that changing? If you can like AI generate blog posts that are like make sense, do you anticipate like that making a difference in your business in the next 3 years?
Depends how spammy you want to get, because like so the thing with AI content is most of it's just regurgitated, right? So like for Jarvis, for example, like their data set, they use, I think, GPT-3 or GPT-2. It's a GPT-2 or 3, whichever one they're using, is like 20 billion different data sets, and they're just running content through it. And so what they're doing is like, okay, what's the most common word that comes after this word? Boom. What's the most common word that comes after this word? Boom. What's the most common word that comes after this word? Boom. And they just keep doing that within the confines of a certain word that they get. And so like, if that content doesn't exist out there in the world yet, then they can't write it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So is it copied content? No, but it's in some ways regurgitated, rewritten content. And so like until like Google actually ran into this problem recently. There's this big push. There's this giant push to index content in Google. So they've been indexing everything, right? But the problem is around this time period, everybody's been publishing AI content. And so Google made a huge change where they're figured out a way to kind of understand when content is not truly unique, if that makes sense. And so they're no longer indexing that content, which means like whole sites dropped off the face of the earth. There was one site in particular that had like $3 million in revenue monthly from this kind of traffic, from this kind of content, and then just overnight gone.
Crazy.
And so from the spam kind of thing, like, yes, there's gonna be a lot of value there. In the real estate niche, maybe not so much, but in general, yes. But like, you're never gonna run into the problem where like you're gonna have to write content on something that doesn't exist yet. And like that's where really a lot of the money is at the end of the day. And like AI content's not gonna do that for you. And so like when it comes back to the entity stuff, it's like you don't even need content to put the entities on the page. You could put 1, 2, 3 across the entire site and just put the entities in the right places and stuff like that. But when it comes to converting a person on the page and producing something where they're going to like it and fill out the form. Like AI is far from doing that, I would say. Like there's still a certain human element there until we can get to that point.
Probably not 3 years away.
Probably not 3 years. Yeah.
Got it.
I think there's a lot of cool stuff in the future. And like the best AI that we've seen thus far is the DaVinci AI by OpenAI. It's the same company that does the DALL-E one. But even that one's not perfect, and it's expensive too. So it's like, yeah,
gotcha.
I think the cost for a human writer that's pretty good to do it, it's like 4 times the cost for a human writer to do it. That's pretty good versus DaVinci. And like once you compare the actual tangible costs, it's pretty much the same. If that makes sense.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, man. Well, any final thoughts here before we end the call? And I will say I want to do another one of these. There's probably like a million things that we could go into about more, maybe about life, philosophy, hard work, lifestyle, social media, all that kind of stuff. I love talking about it. I would love to talk for another hour. Fortunately, I can't right now, but let's hop on another meeting if you're down to it. Are you down to do this again?
Always down. Love this podcast.
Okay, good. We'll make it where it's maybe just you and me talking every week, and then because I think my last episode was like 8 months ago.
Yeah,
so not great.
You're the rare one, man. Yeah, this is the only one I'm actually subscribed to on my Google podcast or whatever. So
yes, awesome. Any final words before we wrap it up here? You feel like you need to say?
I just hope people get into SEO for the real estate investors. Like it's a really unique way to make money over the longer term. And so like instead of doing the hamster wheel direct marketing kind of stuff, direct mail marketing and stuff like that, you can finally kind of branch into something that, even though it's a little bit more technical and it might be outside your comfort zone, it'll make you a lot more money in the long run. So I definitely encourage people to do it. It's a really interesting experience. So, and also sign up for property leads, sign up for SEO meets real investors.
No, just kidding. Just kidding.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's the only reason he came on here. He's like, I'll come on your podcast, but I need to spend at least 20 minutes plugging my stuff. And I'm like, all right, Andy. All right, fine. No, I'm just kidding.
That is not true.
Not true. But yeah, check it out. Property leads with an S, right? Not a Z.
Yeah. Propertyleads.com.
Property leads, easy to remember. And then the Facebook group, SEO meets REI. Great group. I'm an admin as well, if that means anything to you guys, but I don't post anything yet. But a lot of good stuff in there. The group grew super quickly. I was shocked. No offense, but I was like surprised it grew so quickly. It was like 1,000 people in it now, at least something like that, 600 or 1,000 or something. And it's really engaging because the content's so good. That's the only reason why it's growing, because content's awesome. So a lot of free value in there. Check it out. And otherwise, I guess we'll wrap it up. We'll hop on this again. Andy, I appreciate you hopping on and diving into the weeds. I think a lot of people get a lot out of it. If not, I love to know the business model. I think it's really interesting. So appreciate you hopping on, man. Great time as always. And can't wait till you move out to San Diego and become my neighbor.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. You guys have a good one.
All right. See you, Andy. Bye.